Okay, there we go. I'm back. So we have some people saying hi in the chat. Let's say what's up, everybody. But yeah, I just think this is again this matchup between Oregon and Indiana tonight is gonna be spectacular. I can't wait to see I can't wait to watch this game. I knew last night would be good. I was kind of worried after that really slow first quarter, and then we just got a fantastic second quarter and then second half of this game. Now, at the end, was that pass interference? Like, yeah, that was pass interference. But again, at the end, and Casino and I were talking about this after the game where he was like, "Do you think that was pass interference?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's pass interference, but as an Eagles fan, I hate when, the most important game of the season ends on like a penalty, basically, because that's how the Eagles lost the first Super Bowl to the Chiefs. That and Gannon not being able to stop one drive or not even have one defender within 20 yards of a Chief in that game. But the game officially ended because of that penalty. So this game, again, if it would have just been they're down by 4 points, they get one shot at the one. Yes, the drama would have been there, but it was also like, unless you're literally throwing the guy to the ground or I don't know, just jumping on his back and like riding him to the ground, I don't know how you can just be like, oh yeah, let's throw a penalty, give this team a shot at the 1 yard line to win it. I just have always hated. I think everyone has always hated how the pass interference is like, oh yeah, the guy just he fell down or the ball was thrown short and it looked like he was reaching back for it, and now all of a sudden it's an 80-yard completion. I've always just been one of those people that's like, make it a 15-yard penalty and then let's just call it a day. Right? Unless again, they have different degrees of like running into the kicker and roughing the kicker. Let's just say pass interference and I don't know, like intentional pass interference. If it's intentional pass interference, where obviously it's 4th and 20, and you're just like, oh, we're just going to beat the shit out of all these wide receivers. So it's a 15-yard penalty. They don't get a first down. Like, then you go, all right, it's intentional, automatic first down, like blah, blah, blah. But again, as we've seen in sports, especially the past couple years, we thought making football where it was more uh hey, it's a judgment call. We just thought that would make the games better when it's made the officiating so much worse. Because for some reason, every ref feels like they just have the opposite judgment call of what you think would be the actual judgment call. So maybe that's not the smartest thing. But again, Hurricanes, Rebels put on a classic last night. I was happy to see the Hurricanes advance, even though the Ole Miss Rebels had a great story. But again, all I wanted was not Oregon. So as long as Oregon loses to Indiana tonight, I'm happy. If it's Oregon Miami, that just does nothing for me. I just think, again, I'll still watch the game because I'm a sports fan and I like college football. But I think really the drama, the stakes, the story, having number 10 Miami versus number 1 Indiana, with the history those two teams are having, where it's kind of polar opposite of what they are right now, that's intriguing to me. But today, we are not here to talk about college football. We are here to do the NFL Power Rankings, this is the wild card edition, but it is also the last time we will be including teams not in the playoffs. So this is kind of the regular season finale for when it comes to the Power Rankings. So without further ado, let's get into the NFL Power Rankings wild card edition. And first, we have to start with the bottom tier team. And again, I feel like I've just been beating a dead horse with this team or with this slide. So that's not it. There you go. So it is the stop. He's already dead from The Simpsons, where, Homer isn't he like assaulting a clown in the scene or something like that? It is a great scene. But yeah, we've already, it used to be called When It Rains, It Pours. I was also going to put that gif of the guy just hitting a bat against a dead horse at the bottom, because again, we've piled on these teams all year for so long, for so much. And again, they just kind of just want their season to end. They're already looking forward to next year, doing the mock drafts. All the fans are. Obviously, the worst team this year, without a doubt, was the Las Vegas Raiders. That's why they have the number one overall seed in the upcoming draft. They're one of four teams that have 3 wins on the season, which is the lowest win total of the season. The other 3 would be the New York Jets, the Tennessee Titans, and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think, again, of all these bottom teams, I really think the only one you can't make a case for where it's like, oh, well, they might be able to turn this around. Like, this is they might go worst to first. Look at what happened with the Panthers. Look at what happened with Bears. All you need is like one piece and a coach and a good draft, and you're right there. I think, honestly, Giants are probably the closest on this window to, like, they've got some pieces. A lot of guys were injured. They get the right coaching staff in here. You saw in that Miami Ole Miss game, there's now video of Jackson Dart just being like, oh yeah, it's either what it was, Harbaugh or Stefanski. I don't think Stefanski would be the right pick, but who knows? Again, he did a lot with the Browns that I liked, a lot that I didn't like. BCJ 1973 says, send them all to the United Football League, Arizona, Cleveland, Tennessee Raiders, LOL. I mean, yeah, these were, I think, at most points of the season, these were, you could make a case, always the bottom 6 teams, except for that weird 2-week window where the Giants had beaten the Chargers and the Eagles back to back, and everybody was like, is this team actually good? And then they weren't. So, and again, that's mostly due to injuries. So that's why I'm saying Giants, I feel like you have to have the most optimism for. I also feel like the Raiders, you have to be weirdly optimistic to. BC is back. He says Jets to CFL. I mean, would they even take him? But yeah, Raiders, I feel like you also have to be the most optimistic with, because they have some pieces. They have Genty, they have Brock Bowers, who is potentially the best tight end in the league now. And then, yeah, they just they got Crosby. Again, you get the right coach in there. I really feel like it could be a Patriots thing with the Raiders, where you get a season. Like, honestly, if I'm Brady and Mark Davis of the Raiders, I'm trying to get Harbaugh to the Raiders. I just feel like you get one quarterback, you get the guy from Indiana in here, you build it up, you get that Ravens like culture embedded in this team, and I honestly, I think that would work. Again, I think of everybody on here, you can make the case that Titans have a potential bright future. Jets, you can always say, have a potential bright future because they always have good young players that the second they get good, they just trade away. But Browns, again, always have a great defense. Got rid of Stefanski. Maybe I think they promote Jim Schwartz because he's done so good with that defense and just go from there. The Cardinals, honestly, of these bottom 6, feel like the one where it's like, what do you even do if you're Arizona? You have no quarterback. You have no coach. You have one of the cheapest owners in the league. You have no cap space. That's how you know you're a really bad team, where you just have no money to spend, but yet you can't name any of the good players on the Cardinals. They signed Josh Sweat from the Eagles, who I love, and I wish the Eagles would have resigned him. But again, they just spent all their money and have nothing to show for it. And I believe they're one of the poorest, least amount of cap space for a team going into next year. So it's like, if you're the Cardinals, you're in cap hell, you're in player hell, you have no young players. Again, you're going to get a draft piece, but it's like, they feel like they're just 10 years away from being legit. And again, this was from the fan base that at the beginning of the season was like, Gannon, he's great in that division. He's gonna rock it. And that's another thing. They're also in the worst division, because the Raiders, you don't know if the Chiefs will bounce back. You assume, but again, they had everybody back this year. They're most likely going to lose Kelsey. They're also in cap hell. So it's like the Chiefs, this was the year they were supposed to be the best team. They were supposed to be better than the Super Bowl team last year. And then all of a sudden, what is it? All of a sudden now you look at it and it's just like, oh yeah, no, they're actually bad. So, oh, I don't like that. Let me try to, okay, we'll go that. So yeah, if you're the Cardinals, what is the move here? what is the move? Let's move on. We've spent enough. Again, we spent enough time on those six teams. They've been the same six teams for like a month and a half now because again, they've done nothing to move up or down. So let's go to the next which is how the mighty have fallen. Speaking of the Chiefs, we have the what is it? We have the Commanders, the Chiefs, the Saints, the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Falcons. Again, I think if you're looking on this list with the Commanders, you're hoping, oh, we just get Jaden Daniels back and we go back to the NFC Championship game. Maybe we win this time. But again, I think that's a really old team. They're the closest to being in that bottom six because, again, even when Jaden Daniels was back with them this year, it just felt like last year was the flash in the pan and was the outlier as opposed to what this team actually is, which is, I mean, they're not I don't think they're as bad as a 5-12 win team, but I also don't think they're good enough to be a 12-5 year team. So they feel like just somewhere in the middle. They kind of feel like another team on this list, which is the Falcons. They feel like an 8-9, 9-8 team that's always kind of just going to be in the mix, but never really there, unless again they just get good pieces, get good wide receivers. Because again, really on the wide receiver front, it's like you had Debo, you had McLaurin, and those are guys I like, but Debo's always hurt. McLaurin's getting older. Who's their tight end? Their running back is this random mix of guys they've drafted in the 6th round. I'm looking at you, Jacoby, Merritt, Cressett, or whatever his 3 name is. So, yeah, also, again, oldest team in the league, and everybody they signed in the offseason just made them older. It's insane. Chiefs, again, Chiefs might be the most interesting offseason team because it's like everybody expected the Chiefs to suddenly turn it all around when they got everybody back, and then they got everybody back and nothing changed. So again, I've already seen the thing where it's like Patrick Mahomes should be MVP because look at how bad the Chiefs are without him. And it's like, well, yeah, the Chiefs are clearly tanking to get a better draft pick, and they're also playing with a 3rd string quarterback who's never taken a snap before 3 weeks ago in this league. So yeah, the Chiefs, if I'm a Chiefs fan, I go, oh, maybe our run's already over. Like maybe again, do I think that is what's going to happen? No, I fully expect them to be back in the playoffs next year, but to rise back up to the dominance of where they're always in the AFC Championship and all that kind of stuff, that ship might have sailed because again, they have all the pieces. They have everybody. They have the coaching. They're going to lose Travis Kelce, who is still playing at a pretty good level, a pretty high level. So it just feels like if you're the Chiefs, you're just kind of wandering. You're just wandering. uh BCJ says cheating caught up to the Chiefs. Yeah, this is what, it's that Thanos clip. Like, what did it cost you? Everything. But again, if my team was like, hey, we sacrificed everything to win 3 Super Bowls and go to 5, I'd be like, all right, I'll take that. I'll take that. Next up, I think they're interchangeable at this point. You have the Saints and the Dolphins because, again, this is the part where we now talk about the Mike McDaniels firing, which Casino and I thought that when basically the front office gave the go ahead where it's like, oh yeah, let's bench Tua. I thought that was the front office throwing their support behind Mike McDaniel, right? And just being like, okay, like we had to kind of like what the Ravens and John Harbaugh did, where it was like, all right, it's me or him. Because those two never felt like they got along, or something happened in the past 2 years where it was just like they were always on opposite pages of each other. So it got to this point with Mike McDaniel and Tua where it was like, all right, you either get the quarterback or the coach. And then 3 weeks ago, when the front office was like, all right, you can bench Tua. And then Ewers came in and played fine. It's not like he, rocked the world or whatever. But again, it's not like he's a first round, star quarterback that everybody was like, uh-oh, when this guy gets in the league, he's going to tear it up. So when Ewers was doing okay, the Dolphins looked like they were actually fighting for their coach. For him to then get fired it just looks weird. especially now where it was like, oh, he survived Black Monday. Like they're giving him one more shot. I would have liked to have seen one more year with Mike McDaniels as the Dolphins head coach where he's not, tied by the ankles to the cinder block that is Tua. Because again, Tua is what people actually think Jalen Hurts is, which is just this guy that is very spotty and has good seasons, but never really helps his team win. Like, that's Tua. Tua is this guy that when everything's clicking, when everything's going right, he looks competent. When there's one thing slightly off, then it's all of a sudden, where you're having 3 touchdown games, he has 2 fumbles, and you're like, how is this our starting quarterback? So the Tua of it all, I don't know where Tua goes. Maybe he goes to one of those bottom 6 teams we just talked about. I mean, maybe he goes to the Browns. Maybe he goes to the Giants of Dart. Maybe he goes to the Raiders. Maybe he goes to the Jets. Maybe he goes to the Cardinals. I don't know. But when we pull up the rest of them, Saints ended the last month of the season where you're like, all right, something's here. Something's happening. Maybe Tyler Shuck is actually a starting quarterback in this league. So maybe, and then, everybody's going, oh, well, they could have had Shador. They could have had Shador. Then it was like, Shuck actually had a better rookie season than Shador. So maybe, the coaches or the people who scout football and make football their life, maybe they know what they're talking about when they just go, oh yeah, we'll take this guy. And then he looked, again, pretty decent. If I'm the Saints, if you're a Saints fan, you're like, maybe we got something here. Kellen Moore's the head coach. It looks like it works. Bengals are going into this offseason with the same problems they had the last offseason, which was, oh yeah, they spent all their money paying their quarterback and 2 wide receivers. They score a lot of points, and then they literally can't stop a nosebleed. Like, that defense would not be able to handle me on offense, and I have no athletic skill whatsoever. I mean, they'd still crush me, but you get the analogy. And it's just the Bengals, again, finished the league as the 31st worst defense in the entire league. They were allowing 381 yards per game and 60 touchdowns. I believe that's the most touchdowns in the league. Yeah, no team allowed more touchdowns than this Bengals defense. So again, going into last offseason, it was the Bengals defense is really bad. We need to fix this defense. So instead, they re-signed 2 wide receivers that I think, isn't it like something insane where it's Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins take up like a third of the cap space on that team between 3 players. And again, when Joe Burrow was playing out of his mind, MVP caliber season, has never played better, they still miss the playoffs. So he can literally, this Bengals offense with Chase Brown there as well, can literally play perfect offense and they can't make the playoffs, especially in the AFC North, which this season just fell off a cliff. So they're now in a bad division. The Ravens are in disarray after just firing their coach. Maybe their quarterback doesn't want to be there. Who knows? The Steelers are, one missed field goal away from potentially firing their head coach. And then who knows if Rodgers returns and all that kind of stuff. So now all of a sudden, the hard-smashing, hard-nosed AFC North is in disarray. It should be the Bengals for the taking. Browns are the other team in that division who are always a mess. And now it's like, oh yeah, the Bengals are the worst defense in the league, make no improvements on defense ever. They signed the guy, from the first round last year, and it was like he was the last rookie to sign, maybe wasn't even going to play there, was thinking of re-entering college football to potentially re-enter the draft this year, and then you never really heard anything from that guy all season. So again, if you're the Bengals, every single free agency and draft pick should be for 2 things: your offensive line to protect Joe Burrow and your defense. I don't care what on defense. Just go out, get best player available, try to make it work, and then you can make a run. Like, you're there. You can make a run. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and it's just, you just got to protect him and then just be like, hey, if you score 28 points a game, if you score 3 touchdowns a game, we'll try to make a defense that can hold the other team to 20. Like, that's I feel like a low bar that just seems massive at this point. And then if you're the Falcons, I do think the Falcons and Bengals, I've been floating this idea for a while. If you're the Falcons, it feels like you're just a quarterback away. Your defense is surprisingly good. Like the Falcons defense finished the season at 15th in the league, which I feel like is all you need in this league. You need to be a middle of the road defense or higher to be a contender, right? Because you look at all the teams that are on the bottom tier. Ugh, I need water. You look at all the teams on the bottom tier for defenses, and outside of the outlier that is the Steelers and Bears, which again, I think that says everything you need to know about the teams you trust in the playoffs and the teams you don't. It's just everyone has a bad defense is on that bottom six or these first, three bottom of the barrel teams in this league. So with the Falcons, you have a pretty good defense. You have all these offensive weapons. You're just missing a quarterback. So if you're the Falcons, how are you not calling up the Ravens or the Bengals and just being like, all right, what'll it take? Because the Bengals and Ravens, they're going to be like, no. But you're like, all right, we'll give it. Like, what do you want? Like, and then if you're the Falcons, you go, we want to keep Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Everybody else is up for grabs because, again, I trust the Falcons organization to be better off and more able to put together like a winning team. Again, they've been in the Super Bowl. We don't talk about that Super Bowl, obviously, if you're a Falcons fan, but when they had Matt Ryan, they had Michael Vick, they had Julio Jones, they've always felt like they've always kind of been in the mix in that NFC South, again, a division where it feels like every year, every team underperforms and it's just there for the taking. So if you're the Falcons, how are you not calling the Ravens? How are you not calling the Bengals and just be like, hey, so what can we do to get, what can we do to get your quarterback? Just, again, feel it out. Because you're not telling me if you found out tomorrow that the Bengals traded the Falcons for like a defensive player and like 2 first-round draft picks and a third and a fourth, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, the Falcons won this trade by a mile. And you'll be so happy for Burrow. For Lamar Jackson, I feel like it's more kind of like you're already in one of the best organizations in sports. That might be a you thing. Again, with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, it's like you put a average defense around him, he's taking you to the Super Bowl. We've already seen it. Lamar Jackson, it's like, we'll give you a top 5 defense, give you one of the best running backs in the league, and you're putting up 10 points at KC in the divisional round. Like, it's like, these are not the same things. So again, but that's the Joe Burrow loving me. Next up, we have, that was 26-21. Now we're going to the 20-16. And we have comments on that. So it says Brady and Keel says the Bengals are a defense and a head coach away from winning it all. Completely agree. That is another thing where it's the coach, whoever goes in there, has Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas has not been fired, correct? He's still the Bengals head coach. There were so many openings. Or Zach Taylor, I'm sorry, Zach Taylor is still the head coach of the Bengals, right? They didn't fire him. As of 4 days ago, they confirmed that the Bengals are bringing him back. So again, they believe in that coach. So it really just might be a defensive way. It just might be just get the Falcons level defense. If you can go from 31st in the league, which the difference is 3 yards. 3 yards makes them the worst defense in the league. They base the total defense on yards. So the Commanders are the worst defense. They finished the regular season with the worst defense. They only gave up 52 touchdowns, which again is still a lot. The Bengals gave up 60. So I think 60 touchdowns or 8 more touchdowns given up is worse than 4 extra yards given up. So let's just say the Bengals finished with the worst defense. Brady in Keel also says Burrow is worth 4 first 5 seconds in a player. Now that's a lot. But again, I think if the Bengals go to the Falcons and they're like, hey, give us his 3 first-round picks. Again, if you're a Falcons fan and the Bengals were like, we'll take 3 first-round picks for Burrow straight up, nothing else. I think if you're the Falcons, you're like, yeah, deal. Because again, everybody on your team's already young. Like Drake London, I mean, Kyle Pitts feels like he's been in the league for 10 years. I think he's only been in for 5. Bijan Robinson's young. It's like you get some young pieces. That O-line is way better than the Bengals. So again, I feel like if you're a Falcons fan, you'd be like, hell yeah, why do I care about 3 first-round picks? I got Joe Burrow. That's what we're trying to use probably the next 3 future picks on as a quarterback. Because is Michael Penix the guy? I don't think so. And then Kirk Cousins, we know definitely isn't. So, yeah, if you're the Falcons, are you saying no to 3 first-round picks? I think your fans would riot. I think they would riot if you said no to 3 first-round picks for Joe Burrow. But next up, again, I've changed these other ones slightly. This one I didn't change at all because, well, also the teams fit, but also just because this is my favorite slide. And it's the "this is fine" slide. So this is teams 20-16, and those are in order: Cowboys, Colts, Lions, Vikings, Bucks. Again, the Cowboys, Dak is the best quarterback. Dak is the best quarterback in the league who never does anything but put up a bunch of yards. Like this year, it's like, again, the last 3 weeks of the season, they were out of the playoffs, but the talk was he's the most disrespected quarterback in the league. He's going to throw for the most yards of the season. And it's like, hey, name me the guy that 7 years ago threw for the most yards. Oh, you can't? That's because it doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? If every year it's like the best quarterback in the league threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and they won 7 games, you would be like, oh, okay. Like it'd be Joe Burrow last year. You'd be like, wow, what a great year. And then they didn't miss the playoffs and nobody will remember that year 3 years from now. Like, it's like, who cares? Why do we care? Coren 1999 says Cowboys Ravens Super Bowl 61. That's 30-61, right? That's what your guess is. 20-61. I mean, yeah, or I mean, we're not in. Yeah, I was going by years, not Super Bowls. What Super Bowl are we on? Is this 50? I think this next one's 50, isn't it? No, 61 is next year. I don't know. Again, the one thing I don't know is the Super Bowl numbers. I always go by the Super Bowl years. So as the people figured out last episode where I said the 2010 Super Bowl, that was talking about the 2011 Super Bowl because it carries over, blah, 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 blah. So Cowboys, Ravens, if this is Super Bowl 60, actually, I can just look it up. I don't know. I'm trying to guess. Like, I just don't know. So Super Bowl number this year is, so last year was 59. Okay. So we're on Super Bowl 60. I knew it was a round number. So we're on Super Bowl 60. This is going to be Super Bowl 60. So Cowboys, Ravens, Super Bowl 61. Again, this is their year. Cowboys fans have been saying every year since what? The last time they were in the Super Bowl in 1995. 1995, I believe, is the last time. So yeah, going on 20 plus years, about to be 30 or 30 plus years. Again, I'm not a numbers guy, but which is funny because I like stats and all these numbers, but I'm terrible at math. Like terrible at math. Casino knows. But next up, we have the Colts. Again, the Colts really felt like they had lightning in a bottle this year. And the issue was that Daniel Jones went down. And then honestly, for the people saying like, oh, Mahomes should be the MVP for how much his team fell apart without him, that was with a third string quarterback who'd never thrown a pass before. The Colts, the second Daniel Jones went down, they were like, hey, let's bring in Phillip Rivers, who is a potential future Hall of Famer. And he's not a future Hall of Famer for me, but I know people can make the case that he is. So let's bring in Phillip Rivers, future Hall of Famer. And then they never won another game when Daniel Jones went down. So should Daniel Jones be the MVP of the league? If that was the metric, like, yeah, because his team didn't win a single game after he got knocked down. And again, the talk when he was the quarterback was like, oh yeah, Daniel Jones is good, but Jonathan Taylor, I mean, look at what he's doing. He's going to eclipse 2,000 yards. And then he didn't. And he ended up, didn't he finish the season as the rushing leader? I think he did. NFL rushing leader is... Again, I can look. No, I'm sorry. It was James Cook. He was third. So James Cook had about 40 more yards than he did. So again, he finished 40 yards away from being the leading rusher on this entire season, played 17 games. So it was like, all right, so he wasn't the thing that made this team go. It was clearly Daniel Jones. So my concern would be, oh, can Daniel Jones replicate the success he had this year and stay healthy on top of it next year where the Colts can actually make a run? Again, all of a sudden, an AFC South that is super competitive and just has potentially two of the best teams in the AFC in it now. If the Texans defense holds up and can figure out their offense, and then the Jaguars are what? You're going to see in my top 10. I have the Jaguars shockingly higher than I thought I would ever put the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially with Trevor Lawrence, who is a quarterback I think I gave up on 3 years ago. So yeah, again, Colts, can you capture lightning in a bottle a second time? Lions are the next up. So they would be what? This is 20 through 16. So 20, 19, 18. So I have the Lions at 18. And again, the Lions have a top 7 rusher in the league in Jahmyr Gibbs. They have a top 5 passing quarterback in this league based on the insane numbers that Jared Goff this year put up. Jared Goff almost had a Joe Burrow-esque season like last year, where this guy put up 4,600 yards, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Again, everybody on this page was gushing over how great the numbers for Dak Prescott were this year. Jared Goff has better numbers in every category than what Dak Prescott had, and his team also missed the playoffs. Also, maybe shocking to you guys, both of them had the second and third most yards in the entire league. So maybe, again, yards do not matter. A good quarterback play does not matter when your defense, you can't stop anybody, or in the biggest games, you don't show up. For the Lions, it was the games against the divisional opponents, and then also that Eagles game where they were outside and couldn't score more than 10 points after spending 2 years talking shit about how they would have annihilated the Eagles if the Commanders didn't annihilate them. And then we saw how that happened. So again, losing both your coordinators will do that to you. As an Eagles fan, I know that, but Detroit, again, I just feel like Dan Campbell as the offensive coordinator just for some reason does not work. Yes, they score points, but for some reason they always lose these games they would have won if it was when it was somebody else calling the plays. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. I don't know if Dan Campbell is a good coach. He kind of falls into the category with me of John Harbaugh, which is good coach, but just loses the weirdest games in the weirdest ways and always has weird time management stuff. Like that was always, again, I hate to harp on it, but as an Eagles fan, when Andy Reid was in Philadelphia, that was always the number one nitpick for Andy Reid, was just always his time management, clock management stuff is always so weird. You would always hear where it's just like he's always going into half with timeouts. He's always ending the game with a lot of timeouts. And it's like, again, you need to being a head coach is, a million different little things that all add up to wins or losses. So again, with Dan Campbell, I'm not firing him. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying maybe get somebody in the building that can call the plays, so he can focus on other aspects of the team. Again, I like Dan Campbell, but when he started switching to play calling, it was supposed to be this big thing. Then they just felt like they were losing games in the weirdest ways possible. Next up, the Vikings. I would actually probably switch. Again, I didn't really touch this slide. I would probably switch the Vikings and maybe the Cowboys. Maybe kind of put the Vikings and Cowboys and then switch the Cowboys over. I don't know. But if we were going in order, I feel like the Vikings would be where the Cowboys are at 20th, and then whatever. But I would just put the Vikings there because it is just one of those things where is 9, their quarterback, JJ McCarthy, can he play in this league at a high enough level to make this team a contender? I don't think so. I think he had a really, really spotty rookie year that wasn't actually his rookie year, but obviously was his rookie year because he got hurt in the preseason last year. So it's like you just expect more from a guy who's sitting all he can do is learn for an entire year. And then he came out this year, and in the first 2 months of starting, he had a quarter of football where he actually looked good. And that was that, Monday night game against the Bears, where all of a sudden he turned into just this electric elite player. And then for the rest of the season, it was like, oh, he would go 3 games where he wouldn't do anything. And you'd be like, oh my God, is this guy even a backup in this league? And then he would have 1 game where he's grittying into the end zone untouched. And you're just like, all right, we got something here. So again, if you're going to take out the injury and just say, we're taking this as his rookie year, then you go, we saw enough flashes his rookie year to where we're giving him a second chance. So again, next year, as a Vikings fan, are you feeling confident that in this division where there is clearly 3 teams better than you? Well, not clearly, because the Lions fell off this year, but I'm just saying in the past couple years where it's like Lions have been a real contender, Packers, Bears this year are both contenders because they're obviously in the dance. And then Vikings, it was like, oh yeah, you guys were a contender last year. And then you got rid of the one guy who is now in charge and leading the number 1 seed in the NFC. Meanwhile, you guys missed the playoffs. So it's like, was it Darnold? Was it the coaching staff? Is JJ McCarthy that bad? I don't know. But again, if all of a sudden JJ McCarthy is just him next year and the Vikings are back to an 11-12 win team, you just be like, oh yeah, it was just a blip on the radar for him to like learn the system, get his feet wet, and now we're off to the races. So again, if you're a Vikings fan, let me know in the comments how much confidence you have in JJ McCarthy leading your team next year. Next up, the Bucks. Again, the Bucks were a weird one, man, because the this is fine is for all these teams were supposed to be Super Bowl contenders, and they are now all out of the playoffs. And again, Super Bowl contenders either coming into this season or during this season, because again, Colts might be the outlier on here, but we forget because the season's so long that a month or two into the season, everybody was just could not stop talking about the fact that the Colts were on pace to score the most points in NFL history. Again, not in the past couple years, not since blah, blah, blah. The most points in Super Bowl in the NFL's entire history. So the Colts were going to score the most points. And then obviously they fell off. And again, much in those same parameters is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who at one point were 6-2, and a lot of people's sleeper pick for the best team in the NFC, the team that was going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And then they're in a do or die game against the Panthers, obviously get help from the refs to win that game, but still you can say, okay, they won that game, whatever. And then the Falcons win, and all of a sudden they're sitting on the sidelines just being like, man, 1 or 2 games. What are the 1 or 2 games we could have had back that now we would be in a chance? Again, I don't think anybody's, much like how everyone's picking the Rams to just absolutely destroy the Panthers. I don't think if it was Tampa Bay Rams, everybody's going to be like, uh-oh, here come the Buccaneers. But still, they'd be in the dance. And again, anything can happen once you're in the dance. But as of right now, those are 20-16. Cowboys, Colts, Lions, Vikings, Bucks. Again, you can arrange them any order you want because the order doesn't really matter so much as they're just all kind of bunched together. And then I'll tell you what, the one team I had at 15 and the one team I had at 14 were 2 that had to get their own category. Because again, the Ravens, this is the famous gift for everybody just listening that says, bro, I'm just straight up having a good time. There were a lot of teams on this list, and then the other 3 teams on this slide all got into the playoffs. So they're having a good enough time this week because, again, they're in the wild card. They have a shot to advance the divisional and then hopefully the Super Bowl. For the Ravens, you send a rookie kicker out there with 2 timeouts to kick a 44-yard field goal in bad weather. He misses it, and then it's like, well, if he wouldn't have missed it, we'd be in there, not – why are we, putting our playoff lives on the line for everybody says chip shot. It's not, that's still a hard kick just because we see 2 kickers in the league who can kick 60 plus field goals on the regular. It's like now every field goal that's less than 70 yards is just like a gimme. It's like, it's not. I also saw a weird video where every time there is, not every time, but most of the time when there is a John 3:16 poster behind the field goal, the kicker misses it. Coincidence? I don't know. That was just a video where they had like 50 examples, and I was like, all right, this is weird. Again, I don't know I need to see a video of kicks that are missed without John 3:16 or a lot of kicks made with that sign, but I will say that was weird. That was just a side note. But when it comes to the Ravens, you fire your head coach. Again, a coach I feel like most people like. And if you're not one of the, top, what, let's just say playoff teams. If you're not one of the current playoff teams right now, would you honestly, if you're a fan of all those other teams, would you be like, oh yeah, I wouldn't trade my coach for John Harbaugh? Like, I don't think it would be just unanimous across the board. Like, nope, we got our guy. So again, John Harbaugh, and there might even be some teams in the playoffs that would trade their coach right now for John Harbaugh. Again, I don't think it's any coincidence that his manager leaked the second after he was fired. All of a sudden, he got calls from 7 teams when there was only 6 teams that had a coaching vacancy. Like, the John Harbaugh can get a job tomorrow if he wants it. And again, I think if you're looking at all the teams that need a quarter or need a coach, I think either Giants or Raiders are probably the most tantalizing right now with the picks and pieces they have. Also, maybe the Falcons. Again, if I'm John Harbaugh and the Falcons, I just go there and say, let's call the Bengals and see what we can get for Burrow, or see what they want for Burrow. But yeah, Ravens just had to get their own thing, because again, every other team that was on this same slide last week is going to the playoffs. The Ravens aren't. And then, I just had the Panthers again on their own slide, but I didn't save that slide. So Panthers were the last one that are not in the Super Bowl bubble, which is the top 13 teams. They were in their own. I'd download it right now, but it wouldn't be worth the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze. So the Panthers are just on their own, where it's a bunch of question marks, and it's that clip of John Travolta just walking back and forth confused. So the Panthers, again, you're just playing with house money. If you lose, no one is shocked, because everyone is picking you. Even Vegas is picking you to lose at home to the Rams by 10 plus points, despite the fact that you beat them, 2 months ago. So now I believe that game wasn't that at Rams, or were they at home? But either or, they beat them 2 months ago, and now nobody picked them to beat them that game, and now less people somehow are picking them to beat them this game. Yeah, that was in Carolina. So again, they've already seen the Rams at home, already beat the Rams at home. Now they are seeing this Rams team again at home for the Panthers, and no one picks them to even have a shot. Again, that was during that Matt Stafford period where it was like, he's thrown 30 touchdowns and no interceptions. And then all of a sudden he threw an interception didn't he throw 2 in the next 4 plays after that whole thing was said? So if Carolina, and again, you look at how Carolina won that game. Obviously, it was the interceptions, and there was a fumble, and I think Stafford turned the ball over 3 times. But again, this Rams defense, we thought they would take a leap from what they were last year. They have not. This is not a good Rams defense, much like the 49ers and the Bears, which we're going to talk about, which is just teams we think have a way better defense than they do, which they do not have good defenses. Carolina in that first game, Bryce Young threw for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and was sacked twice on 15 attempts. I don't feel like that's insane to replicate, especially again against this defense with the same pieces. And Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle, and Bryce Young combined for 164 yards rushing. Again, Rico Dowdle, since that game, has been much better. He finished the game as, I think, a top 10. I still have the rushing thing up here. Didn't he finish in the top 10? No, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. He was 14. All right, but he still finished as 1,000-yard rusher. So again, if you can just control the clock, run the ball, and then play smart offense where you don't turn the ball over, you can beat anybody in this league. And again, that's how the Panthers won the first one. They won the turnover battle and then just controlled the clock. So No, I'm not picking the Panthers in an upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset. So now that everybody else is out of the way, let's finish this episode by talking about the official last Super Bowl bubble before we are actually in the playoffs, because again, this is the season finale for power rankings, because we can't really do a power rankings next week when there's what going to be 8 teams. So here we have it right now. Now, for those who have not watched before, we always do the Super Bowl bubble. And again, if you're familiar with Colin Cowherd, we have been doing the Super Bowl bubble like for 3 years. So 2 years before he ever debuted this on his show, and his graphic department doesn't even make it look like bubbles. So again, use this stock image from Canva to make it look like bubbles over a multi-million-dollar show. So again, and people are saying, well, Colin Cowherd did not steal this from you. What would make more sense? Stealing it from a podcast of YouTube that no one's ever heard of, or stealing it from a really popular one? You know the answer to that. Don't play dumb. So now we have the official last Super Bowl bubble of the regular season. And let's just go through the outlier teams. And right now I have, for the Super Bowl rankings, I have Panthers obviously were the odd man out for the playoff bubble. That's why they got thrown slide. 13, I had the Steelers. So I think Steelers are the worst playoff team. And I think they're the worst playoff team because, again, they should have lost that game against the Ravens they played. But again, the kick missed, all that kind of stuff. But you look at the Steelers and you look at what their offensive and defensive rankings have been for this season. The Steelers finished the season as the 26th worst defense in the league. So that means they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are a bottom 7 defense in this league going into the playoffs. Defense wins championships is not just a saying we just say willy-nilly. We say it because it means if you can play defense, you're most likely going to win championships. And the Steelers play the worst defense in the league outside of the next team on this list, which is, I put the Packers and Bears at 12. I had them tied for 12. Again, I'm just putting this separately as playoff teams. We're factoring in regular season, obviously, because you can't be in the postseason without being on this list, right? So Packers and Bears, and right on cue, we have Crimson 2139 say, fuck Green Bay. I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you probably think of that. And then somebody else over here said, also go Bears. So now I will say, oh yeah, BCJ said Chicago versus Denver Super Bowl. I mean, again, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. But when you're looking at Packers Bears, you have to think, what is it that, again, Bears are at home, but the first time the Bears and Packers played each other, Jordan Love played in that game and he beat the Bears. Right? The second time, Malik Willis had a great game. Again, I think he had 2 touchdowns, 80% completion percentage in that game. The Bears had to come back to beat Green Bay in that game. So you look at on paper and you go, okay, the 2 worst defenses in the league are Bears and Steelers by a large margin. The next would be the 49ers. So the 3 worst defenses, but again, Bears 29th in the league in total defense, Steelers 26, 49ers 20th. So Bears are, I feel like, just have the worst defense in the entire postseason by a country mile, because again, they're so turnover based. Their entire defensive strategy is just get an interception or fumble, which again, they're the best in the league at. So it's not like they're just ho-hum just in the middle on that. They're the best in the league at getting turnovers and turnover differential for the entire season, which is how they're here and playing a first round home playoff game. But if you look at the history of this season with the Packers have basically dominated this Bears team for what? There's 8 quarters that these two teams have played against each other. For 7 of those quarters. Like, the Packers have won 1 game and then we're winning for 3 quarters until that crazy 4th quarter where the Bears come back, cardiac cats, all that kind of stuff. So Casino is picking the Bears in this game. I'm picking the Packers in the upset. And it just comes down to one of those things where I trust, again, you look at this, you don't even have to talk about the quarterbacks because it's a mystery if Caleb Williams is going to translate the success of the regular season to the postseason. We see quarterbacks all the time who are great in the regular season and suck in the offseason and vice versa. So with the Packers, defense, they're 12th in the league in total defense, have only allowed 39 touchdowns. The Bears have allowed 10 more touchdowns and almost are allowing 100 more yards a game. So again, Packers defense is much better. The offenses are much closer together, with the Bears having the sixth best offense and then the Packers having the 15th. So it becomes a question of their offenses are very similar. Do you trust offenses that are close together with just giant gaps in the defense between a good defense and a bad defense? Or do you just think the home field advantage and what the Bears have been doing will, lead them to a victory? Again, that's what Casino thinks. I'm picking the Packers, but neither scenario in this game would surprise me unless one team blows up the other, because I don't think that's going to happen. Next up, so we had 13, 12. Now we're into the top 10, because technically Bears Packers are 11 and 12. So the top 10, I have the Texans as my number 10, just because of how good that defense is for the Texans. Again, the Texans finished the regular season as the number one defense in the league. But again, much like the worst defense in the league, where you say, oh, well, they've allowed the most or the least amount of yards, but more touchdowns. The Broncos are technically the best defense in the league because they allowed one more yard, but have allowed 6 less touchdowns. So if you look at the touchdowns, Texans would be third of teams in the playoffs, because again, but it's close. So Texans technically have the best defense, realistically have a top 3 defense. So their top 3 defense, or 1 defense, however you want to view it, I think will be the reason why they beat the Steelers on Monday night. Because again, Aaron Rodgers, much more mobile than we thought he would be this season, but still not a young buck that's going to be running around for all these kind of yards. I don't trust the weapons, the offense, the offensive line, and then how bad that Texans offense is might be why that game on Monday night is close. I know we have a lot of Steelers fans because they're just everywhere, but we've had a lot of Steelers fans in the comments and just always on our shows. So again, I have no skin in this game. So I'm rooting for you Steelers fans, because I've never met a single Texans fan in my life. I've met hundreds of Steelers fans. So Steelers fans, I'm rooting for you. I just think, again, defense wins championships, and playoff football is much harder hitting and feels like it's much more skewed to the defense, unless you have just an all-time offense, which I think I don't think if any of these teams really do just have these lights out offenses that can put up points against anybody. So again, I'm going with the defense. I'm leaning with the Texans. That's why I put them at number 10. Number 9, I actually have the Chargers. So again, I was actually just arguing. Let's actually see if he responded. I was just arguing with somebody on our YouTube page. Go check us out with the shorts, where we were uploaded. No, he did not reply. Where he uploaded the Chargers preview, the Chargers Patriots preview, and the guy was making the case that, oh yeah, Herbert already had surgery on his hand, so it's no longer an issue. He's just going to wear a cast and have, screws and plates in it for Sunday's game against the Patriots. And I was just like, that actually makes me feel less confident in the Chargers upsetting the Patriots than I did. Like, if his hand his hand's still a liability. Like, people just are like, he had surgery, he's fine now. It's like, yeah, is it recommended by doctors that the second after you have surgery to just go play a high impact sport immediately? Like, no. And there's a reason. Again, it's like he gets hit on the hand again, or something happens, gets driven to the ground. Who knows? But again, I've always been a Justin Herbert. It's not even hater. I don't dislike the guy. I just think he's extremely overrated for what he's done in this league. But I will never say he's not a good quarterback, and he's not a gritty, tough quarterback playing with an injury like this. But I just don't see how it's an advantage or a non-issue. And again, this Chargers defense, 5th in the league in total defense. Their defense is great. The Patriots offense is fantastic, and also Drake May being second in the league in or if, I mean, however you want to skew it, he might be the MVP of the league, but he won't finish lower than second. That's the whole point. So he's going to be either MVP or MVP runner up. And then going against this Chargers team, it's not going to be May versus Herbert, because again, in that you could make the argument of who's the better quarterback, all that kind of stuff. The rookie quarterback in the playoffs for the first time, rookie in terms of hasn't been to the playoffs before. So with the Patriots, their defense is 8th in the league, Chargers defense is 5th in the league, and then offensively, what the Chargers are 12th and the Patriots are third. So again, these teams are much more evenly matched than everybody believes going into this game. But again, I just think Herbert's banged up. This Chargers team is banged up, and I just trust the Patriots again at home with a coach that, again, you can always say with Harbaugh for the Chargers, like he's always usually the best coach at every scenario, but I don't know. Again, I just think that the coaching matchup, the defenses, the offense are so close together that you have to look at the minutia, the minimal details in this. And I think Herbert having the busted up hand and him historically having his worst games of the season in the playoffs is going to play a factor in this game. So I think it's going to be Patriots close. This kind of feels like the Patriots Ravens game from a couple weeks ago. That feels like what this game's going to be. Next up, we have at number 8, the other California team, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. And how do you say this name? Mexican American with a 3 and a 1. That's actually cool. That actually looks cool. Mexican American says, from these bubbles, the Seahawks against the Bills in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think when it comes to who I'm picking in the Super Bowl, again, I feel like I have to. Me and Casino were supposed to on Wednesday. We didn't pick it. So who am I picking in the Super Bowl? I honestly think, again, I don't trust Sam Darnold. I don't trust him in the playoffs. I think this Rams team is flawed. Honestly, this is going to be a homer pick. I just don't see Seahawks or Rams going to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I honestly think whoever wins the Eagles 49ers game goes to the Super Bowl to represent the NFC. Now, I think the Eagles beat the 49ers this weekend. So that's my backhanded way of being like, I think my team goes to the Super Bowl, but I'll broaden it a little and say whoever wins that Eagles 49ers game, that's who's representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. As far as the AFC, I mean, Bills should be there. Patriots, Broncos should be there, but I'm looking at the Jaguars. The Jaguars are scary, man. If it's Eagles or 49ers, Jaguars, I would be terrified. Because again, I've seen Eagles, Bills. I think Eagles would beat Patriots. I think, what is it? I think I've seen Eagles Broncos. I would actually prefer Eagles Broncos because at least then Eagles would be like, have motivation to beat the team that beat them in the regular season, a team that they dominated for 3 quarters and then just gave that game up in the 4th. But yeah, same person, Mexican American says, who you got for Houston Steelers? I'm picking, we just went over it. I'm picking Houston just because I think their defense is, elite, obviously, because they're a top 3 defense in the league. Defense wins championships. I don't trust either offenses on either of these teams, so I'm going with defense that is, again, much better than the Steelers, whose defense is historically bad, I feel like, for the Steelers. But at number 8, we just talked about him as representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. 8 and 7, I have 49ers at 8, Eagles at 7. And again, this is just because there's just something about because it's my team, I believe in it so much more than I would with any other team. But there's reports coming out of Eagles that the locker room is bumping, coaches are happy, players are happy, everybody's getting along, vibes are immaculate in Philadelphia, on the Philadelphia Eagles with this team right now. So again, I am going to give my full-throated support. That's a weird saying, but it is a saying. Full support of the Eagles reporting and reporters just saying that vibes are immaculate at Eagles camp. There's also a lot of online chatter where it's like Eagles and 49ers fans are going back and forth because we've had this blood feud since the 31-7 game. What, that was like 3 years ago, where Purdy got knocked out. And then obviously the last time these two played was that disastrous Eagles season where they just collapsed at the end of it. And that collapse started when the 49ers absolutely put belt to ass on my Eagles and annihilated them. So again, the first time these two teams played in this little brief couple year rivalry, the Eagles annihilated the 49ers. Last time they played, 49ers annihilated the Eagles. Now, based on how both these teams have played this year, I do not see either of these teams winning in a blowout. I can see every other scenario possible. There's no scenario where I see either the 49ers blowing out the Eagles or the Eagles blowing out the 49ers, just strictly based on how these two teams have played this year. Again, people are going to say, well, the 49ers have put up a lot of points this year. Yeah, not against good defenses, never more evident by the fact of what happened in that Seahawks game where they just got completely shut down. So now the X factor in both these games is the running backs, because Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, you could make the case with James Cook and Bijan Robinson. They're all in that mix of who's the best wide or running back in the league, right? You can pick 4 or 5 guys and just be like, every game, every week, every year, it's most likely going to be one of these guys. So 49ers have one of the worst rush defenses in the league. And then Christian McCaffrey, again, just the season he's having, he's their leading rusher, leading wide receiver. When he has games, when he has good games, they win. When he has bad games, this offense is just anemic and can't move the ball at all. So again, Vic Fangio is the mastermind of this defense that both Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, pretty much every other coach in the league who's an offensive guru says scares him, right? So in this game, it really comes down to, can Vic Fangio find a way to shut down Christian McCaffrey? If they do, the Eagles win this game easily. But because it's the Eagles of this year, they won't win it easily. And it'll be a 1-score game till probably the fourth quarter. And then I think Eagles either hold them off or get a score late, and that's how they win. But that's why I'm picking whoever represents the NFC to come from this game, because again, I don't trust really any of the teams in the AFC or NFC at this point, and who knows? It's all about momentum. Next up, we're getting into the top 6. So with the top 6, we're now in the center bubble. So the teams on the outlier are the ones I could see winning the Super Bowl if everything goes right for them. Which again, I'm thinking that the Eagles 49ers game, whoever comes from that game gets the momentum enough to win the next game. Everything's going right. They go to the Super Bowl. Now, in the middle, these are the teams that legitimately should win the Super Bowl. These are the 6 best teams in the league, in my humble opinion, right now. And that is, let's go from 6 to 1. So 6 is the Bills, 5 is the Rams, 4 is the Broncos, 3 is the Patriots, 2 is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and number 1 is the Seattle Seahawks. So on Wednesday's show, I was making the case that the Jacksonville Jaguars are the best team in the entire NFL. And then I started looking at the numbers, started doing a little research, and it's like, oh, no. The Seahawks are clearly the best team in the NFL right now because of DVOA and every kind of metric you want to spin that defense through. They're number 1 with a bullet in almost every single category except like takeaways, right? Because that, I believe, still belongs to the Bears. So every single defensive metric, this Seahawks are number 1 in. Like, it's like the Jaguars are, I think they're second in the league in turnover differential to the Bears, and they're a really good defense, really good offense. Like, they're kind of just all over the place in terms of metrics, however you want to grade it. The Seahawks defense, again, across the board, first or second in almost every category. So they are statistically the best defense, and it's not even close. It's not even up for debate. So they, I feel like, clearly have to be number 1. Now, again, the thing with every team on this Super Bowl bubble list, inside the bubble or outside, is every team has like this one giant glaring flaw that will either prevent them from winning one of these games or prevent them winning the Super Bowl. And it really comes down to, in these games, who can hide their flaw the best. So with the Seahawks, it really comes down to Sam Darnold. right? Because again, he's never a flaw during the regular season. Last year with the Vikings, his two worst games was the game at the end of the year to win the division and then that first playoff game. That is pretty much why it's been rumored that the front office just let him walk, right? Because it was that thing where it was like, oh, well, if we can't win the big one with this guy, why did we sign him? Right. And now they can't even get to the playoffs, but that's the discussion we already had. So with the Seahawks, they have the best wide receiver in the league in terms of numbers this year with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't love their running backs. I think their running game is also an issue. So then it becomes, if you're in a shootout in the playoffs, or if you're playing against, another great defense, especially since the bye week in the Philadelphia Eagles, does Sam Darnold can he muster enough offense to lead his team in those clutch moments, in those big games where everything's on the line? Like, I've never seen it. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying I'll believe it when I see it. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, is the only team on this list, and why I think the scariest team in the playoffs right now, where the fatal flaw is what exactly? Because offensively and defensively, they're 10. So both, they have a top 10 offense, they have a top 10 defense, they have the second most turnovers in the entire league of any team. So they turn the ball over, or they get turnovers. They don't turn the ball over. They have a top 10 offense, top 10 defense, only team in the league that has scored 25 plus points in 12 games this season. 12 games. So if you're looking at every team on this list, again, you can make the case every team has a fatal flaw except the Jacksonville Jaguars. So with Jacksonville Jaguars, it also just becomes, we've seen Trevor Lawrence have great playoff games. You think about that big comeback a couple years ago against Herbert. That was a great playoff game. So we've seen him play great in the playoffs. Really, it just comes down to Liam Cohen. He's going to be going, he's a rookie head coach. He's going to be going against, if he does get to the Super Bowl, the likes of, Shanahan or McVay, or people give Sirianni shit, but he's been to 2 Super Bowls. So again, the Jacksonville Jaguars' really only flaw is that they're going to be at a coaching disadvantage for most of these games, unless it's, against another rookie head coach on this list, it would be either Ben Johnson or the Seattle Seahawks with McDonald. So yeah, that's really the only flaw. But again, Jacksonville, that's why they're the scariest team. Patriots, the obvious flaw is they haven't played anybody, right? Like, that's the whole thing. They're one of the only few teams that have only played 1 or 2 playoff teams this entire year. And I think they're 1-1 in those playoff games, or 2-1 because I believe wasn't it the Bucks or something like that? One of the teams they beat had a winning record when they beat them, and then finished with a losing record. So technically on the season, they're like 2-1 against winning teams. So they've just played nobody. Again, you can hear all the things about where it's like, oh, well, actually, Drake May played against harder teams than Stafford and harder defenses and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, okay, but he's played against one playoff team like the entire season. You don't think the best teams are in the playoffs right now? You think all these great defenses like the Browns and Titans were, if they beat them, everybody would just go, well, of course they beat the Patriots. They have great defenses. Like, no, it's again, football is where you need both sides to complement the other. So again, it's a real thing. I know the Patriots fans want to go, oh, well, you just play who it is. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean everybody has to go, you're the best team in the league. Just because you play the teams on your schedule doesn't mean when you beat them, everybody then goes, this is the best team. But I mean, they're in the Super Bowl bubble. So what more do you want? Next up, the Rams. And again, the Rams, 49ers, Bears, Steelers, they all have the same fatal flaw, which is just, I don't trust their defense at all. Their defense isn't good. And when you get in these playoff games, you need good defenses to win games. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. Rams are right on the cusp of having a problematic defense, in my opinion, because you need to have 15 or higher, just in my stupid brain, to warrant just being like, oh yeah, defense is an issue. So Rams are 18th. So they're kind of right there on the cusp. But again, they've given up 38 touchdowns. Panthers have given up 42. So the Panthers, who everybody's given no shot against this Rams team, have given up 4 more touchdowns on the entire season, than the Rams have. So it's not like the Rams are just all of a sudden this great defense. Their defense is below, they're slipping, all that kind of stuff. Them getting back Devontae Adams is obviously going to help, but again, Rams, they're dangerous. They're probably my pick for most dangerous team in the NFC outside of the Seahawks, if I'm which I am an Eagles fan. So there you go. Rams and Jaguars. I could also see that very easily being the Super Bowl. I could honestly see Rams, Jaguars, and then Patriots, Seahawks. I could see both those being the Super Bowl, and it wouldn't be shocked at all. My last two, and then I'll get out of here. Oh, I gotta get out of here right now, so I will actually go through these really quickly. Bills. It just comes down to basically this is the Josh. This has to be the Josh Allen legacy playoff run, which is just no Lamar Jackson, no Patrick Mahomes, no anybody to stop you from getting to the Super Bowl when everybody thinks those are the threats, right? No Burrow, no Lamar Jackson, no Chiefs. If you're the Bills and we look back on this time and it's like, oh yeah, the Bills had a clean shot to the Super Bowl, but they got stopped by CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, or 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers, or Justin Herbert playing with one arm. Like, then you go, all right, maybe now we need to have a different discussion about Josh Allen than the one we always do have. Again, that's just how history will look back on how fairly or unfairly that is. I don't know. And then the Broncos, again, it just comes down to they're kind of the Eagles of the AFC, which is just nobody likes watching Broncos games, especially the past month or two, because of how ugly these games are. They're playing the Chiefs with their third string quarterback, and it's a one possession game. It's a field goal game. That entire game, Broncos can't do anything. Their offense felt like it has already peaked, and then it's just slowly started going down over the past couple weeks. So again, Broncos, a lot of these teams really feel like they're just going into the playoffs with no momentum whatsoever. And in the Super Bowl bubble, the Broncos feel like they lost the most momentum going into, the postseason. Thank God they have the week one, bye, or the round one bye where they can just rest. But dear Lord, if you're the Broncos, how are you resting and then just going to get psyched back up when you have, again, no momentum going into this playoff? So this is the final Super Bowl bubble that will be whittled down because half these teams will be eliminated by next week. So stay tuned next week, where this was the season finale of the power ranking, but it is not the season of the Super Bowl bubble, because the Super Bowl bubble will get smaller and smaller until there's only one team in the Super Bowl bubble. So this has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. Join us here on the channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. This Friday I had to do it at 12, but that's because I have to do something at 1:30. So I couldn't do it at 1. So instead I did it an hour earlier. If you're just coming here for for the show at 1, go back and check out the show. Comment, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. Go to wherever you get your podcasts. Listen to us. Casino and I will be back Monday at 1 p.m. This is West Coast time, PST. So West Coast time, 1 p.m. on Monday, to talk about a wild weekend in sports, including tonight's Indiana and Oregon game, and then obviously the entire weekend of NFL playoff games. So come back here Monday, and then we're also going to try to start incorporating some more basketball talk and hockey talk, all that kind of stuff, while the football season kind of dwindles down. So yeah, I'm Will. That's usually where Casino is. We will see you Monday. This is the Only Sports Podcast. Adios.